And last but certainly not least, energy as a service.
Great. Well, again, everything that they said makes my job easier. A quick Google search will show you that prices of electricity are rising. This was from a couple days ago, and there's all sorts of reasons for it, and it changes by utility. So Google it. Next slide. Reliability, this has become an increasing issue. Poweroutage.us is a really interesting website. You can see power outages in real time throughout the United States. So your utility likely has been affected at some point. Some customers aren't quite as affected. So it's really about, what are you feeling locally in your areas where you build? Is this real to customers? We have communities that have a very high attachment rate for energy storage because there are a lot of power outages in those areas. So it's just something to think about based on where your communities are situated. Again, Google it. We find that there are two elements to the electrification movement. There's the mandates that are happening, so whether it's your state or it's your local governments or it's the federal government, we are seeing a big push to electrification, to decarbonization. These are the buzzwords that you'll hear, and really what that means is requirements, right? The code cycles will change. You'll have REACH codes. They might start with things like solar ready, making sure that rooftops have available space, and then they'll move towards solar requirements like California, I think New Mexico now, and then storage is coming as well. In California, we're starting to see that in the commercial space and certainly on solar or storage ready on the residential space. And then there's the market. People want it. So look at both and understand your customers, and this is why we're here to help introduce it's going to be more than 10% at some point for sure.
Yeah.
So Swell, energy as a service, a lot of you have probably heard of leases or power purchase agreements, and energy as a service is actually a terminology that's been in the commercial space for a very long time, and now it's a little bit of a better description for what that product suite is for the residential space. No longer is it just power that we're producing with solar panels, which is a kilowatt hour being produced on a roof. Now it's actually managing that battery, managing the energy, and then also integrating solutions like EV charging, smart home, smart circuits, et cetera. So Swell's energy as a service is a third-party ownership. We own and operate that battery for 20 or 25 years. Most builders like 0% escalators. A lot of the bad press about leases is from customers that have experienced escalation over the last few years, that while they might still be saving money, the perception is that that rate is just going to keep going up and up. So is your utility, by the way, but it's certainly an issue when you're trying to transfer a home. So a 0% escalator truly is an amazing service for a customer versus a hard cost for the builder up front. And what Swell does is also integrate the virtual power plant, so we're able to bring down that monthly service fee to the customer when there's a utility contract where Swell works with the utility to provide services. We talked about with the EVs. Offers that to the customer as an additional incentive to reduce that monthly cost of energy for them if they want to participate within the grid to essentially reduce the energy demands of the home. So spoke about this a little bit more, just to it is optional for homeowners. So we had a community in San Diego. We offered a 1-month program. The utility was offering $200 to participate. Really no impact to the customer whatsoever to participate. We're able to enroll about 50% of the customers click through an enrollment and participate in the community. So our energy as a service offering can really be looked at as like a utility service. So in the case where you don't have solar, you don't have storage in any of your homes, you always are going to have an electric bill. So that's the utility only column on the right side. You will have an electric bill. Rates will likely increase. You don't have control of it. You don't have an option in most cases. There are retail electricity provider markets where there's a little bit more options for customers to choose what provider, but you always have to have electricity in your home. With the Swell Energy as a Service offering, you still are connected to the grid. This is not a complete disconnection, so any excess energy that you might need to consume, maybe you had a display, Christmas lights that raised that bill in December. You don't have as much solar in the winter, so you will pull energy from the grid during that time. But really, it's the combination of the two where Swell's energy as a service will reduce the bills, will fix that cost of energy at a 0% escalator, kind of the inflation buster, right? We're fixing it for 20 or 25 years for the cost of energy. We're going to provide reliability when energy storage is involved, so you have backup power protection for the homeowner. And you also have this ability to connect with the virtual power plant, reduce that cost of that monthly utility fee by being a member of that community grid. And so this is essentially very indicative numbers that the costs do vary by utility, by home, the size of solar, the cost of the projects, et cetera. So some of the new home buyer options, of course, you can build it into the mortgage, which a lot of builders like to do, especially on the luxury. There's cash buyers, et cetera. On the production, high volume, certainly this is the most common way to do it, is a lease or energy as a services agreement. And then, of course, just cash buyers sometimes. So these are a few of the options. Upsides, right? And just to go back on my upsides here, we talked about it a little bit, but really there's no impact to the customer from a debt to income ratio. This is really important. This is looked at as a service. It's no different than a cell phone type service, right? We're providing that as a utility type service. And then, as well for the builders, some of the big upside here is that you're able to maximize the amount of build that you do for high profit margin elements of your construction. And then on top of that, you have now the homeowner can go solar, they can add batteries, and then you can get builder rebates like we talked about, which is pretty common for lease agreements because you can't make margin on that, but you can make a builder rebate and negotiate that with Swell or with another provider. All right, so the downsides, I like to look at both sides of energy as a services agreement. You do have, it's a little more complicated. It's not here's your electric bill. You've got two essential service providers, the on-site energy service provider and then your electric utility. And then there's certainly, I think everyone will say, well, what happens when you want to sell that home? What's that transfer process? So ensuring that your service provider, Swell, looks at this very closely in terms of what is that documentation. You'll want to look at those contracts, make sure that transfer process would be easy for a homeowner if they ever chose to sell the home in the future, which they most likely will. So some downsides for the other items too, but I'll move on. So just three things to remember about Swell. We will support you with project development. Consulting absolutely is a big part of this, especially as you're just getting into this. I had some slides earlier about kind of building, energy ready. Really important. Echo everything that was in your slides as well about making sure the trades are engaged and making sure that you've thought through what it'll take to have that homeowner be able to offer these solutions in the future. Virtual power plants can reduce the cost of ownership to that monthly service fee if they include it, cash or energy as a service type connections. And then, Swell offers an energy as a service package that can bring together all of these solutions they talked about and make it no cost to the consumer.